The line between fiction and reality blurs as a cartoon comes to life. No, as a reality too cartoonish to be real bleeds into the surreal. This physical realm of exaggerated characters, of caricatures, is forced into self-parody, diluting the intoxicating appeal. When real life has already reached the epitome of the absurd, how do you make a cartoon out of a cartoon? Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling is a 26-episode animated series that originally ran for 2 seasons from September of 1985 to October of 1986. It was for kids who wanted a little more structure to their theater of the absurd. Spinning out of the explosive growth of the World Wrestling Federation, Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling capitalized on some of the most popular sports entertainment stars the world has ever known. It took the exaggerated real-world characters and reinterpreted them in a visual style and universe that was, quite possibly, a more literal representation of those characters than life. It borrowed the general faces versus heels story structure of the WWF, but sharpened it. It positioned Hulk Hogan and his friends as the good guys against Roddy Piper and his friends as the bad guys. It also had just about nothing to do with wrestling, or rather, less to do with wrestling than the live-action show it was based on. Episode plots barely meet the minimum expectations for disposable Saturday morning cartoons. In fact, it's hard to believe that there's a wrestling fan or a 6-year-old who wouldn't be at least a little offended by the producer's inability to take any of this seriously. It is still real to me. That's not how I thought I was going to deliver it, but it worked. But can you really blame anyone failing to make a compelling cartoon out of that? How do you parody characters and relationships that are already so over the top? And not for nothing, but the production schedule of the cartoon meant there was no way that they could keep pace with the developing narrative of the live-action series, even if they had wanted to. In the early 1980s, the WWF had become a household name and was crossing over to every aspect of mainstream success. It was a unique kind of sports theater experience that had previously been rooted in regional attractions, now being embraced nationally. Characters and events that were being promoted at a scale that was usually reserved for actual sports and actual theater. WWF owner Vince McMahon, his newly signed hero character Hulk Hogan, and his newly signed villain Roddy Piper put the theatricality of professional wrestling in front on TV at a national scale to push that branding across licensing. And that they did. The WWF name and logo, all of the associated characters were slapped on anything that it could be slapped on, helping to make it a household name. The early 80s saw the rise of wrestling as well as a mutually beneficial rock and wrestling relationship with the music industry, specifically cross-promotion through music videos on MTV and every other music video program, which there were a lot of. In 1983, a meeting between pop music star Cyndi Lauper and wrestling star Captain Lou Albano resulted in his appearance as her father in the video for Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. After that, Lauper made several appearances on WWF broadcasts through a developing plot that pitted her against her former fictional father in and out of the ring. On the other side of the deal, stars from WWF appeared in multiple videos produced by Cyndi Lauper, including The Goonies Are Good Enough, Time After Time, and She-Bop. WWF was, culturally, working the same audience as MTV, setting the tone for entertainment, fashion, and 80s culture. WWF, the brand, was omnipresent in the clothing aisle, in the housewares aisle, and in the toy aisle. In 1984, the year before the cartoon aired, LJN began releasing WWF toys under a line called Wrestling Superstars. Wrestling Superstars included a headlining series of 8-inch solid rubber non-posable figures. Each figure was single-carded, came with an accessory, and a mini poster. Over a 5-year period, LJN would release over 60 different figures, including variants of some of the more popular characters. They released 16-inch Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper figures that featured more articulation, and nearly 20 different 4-inch bendy figures similar to the larger 8-inch figures, but more flexible with a wire inside, allowing them to hold some of the poses you flexed them into. And even 12 figures as 2-packs of thumb wrestlers that fit on your thumb like a rubbery action figure sleeve, none of which were part of the animated series merchandising. Except that they were. Except that they weren't.
Ready for Hulkamania? Ancient Adonis, looking good and tough to beat. Nobody beats Macho Man.
You can get right in the action in the ring with Wrestling Superstars figures. The big names are here and they're ready. It's corner-to-corner excitement. Match your moves against the other guy. Have your own WrestleMania with all your favorite figures. Because you're in the ring with the WWF Wrestling Superstars figures. Figures, ring and cage sold separately. Assembly required. It's a grand toy.
I can beat anyone.
What'd you say, boy?
Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling was produced by Deke Animation. It was a joint production of Deke Animation and WWF's then production company, Titan Towers. Jean Chalopin, Andy Hayward, Tetsuo Katayama all acted as producers, while Jeffrey Scott was the creator and developer. Think of it as a snapshot of the general concept plot of the WWF without any nuance or intrigue or development, just the straight surface archetypes extrapolated to their literal cartoonish extremes, then pitted against each other in harmless, nonsensical, disposable situations. Situations like, and I'm just going to quote this straight from the episode descriptions, Episode 2, a horse shows up and causes trouble for the wrestlers. Episode 10, when Hillbilly Jim's grandmother's miracle herb gets into the chili, the wrestlers all turn into kids. Episode 23, after a break-in at the junkyard, Junkyard Dog gets a dog for protection. The opening theme for the show acted as a bridge from the live-action world of WWF to the animated world using footage of the actual Hulk Hogan juxtaposed with his animated counterpart. The animated series theme song is just Hulk Hogan's theme composed by Jim Steinman. This is the song Hogan used before switching to Real American during the peak of his characterization as an embodiment of American Cold War heroism. Pre-recorded segments of the actual wrestlers were also used to set up episode themes or deliver jokey skits, but none of the actual wrestlers voiced their own characters on the series. That was left to voice actors who could maintain the production schedule. The cast featured pre-Everybody Loves Raymond Brad Garrett as Hulk Hogan, pre-Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and pre-Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles James Avery as Junkyard Dog, Neil Ross as Mean Gene Okerlund, Charlie Adler as Rowdy Roddy Piper, Jody Carlisle as both Wendy Richter and the Fabulous Moolah, Ron Feinberg as Andre the Giant, George DeCenzo as Captain Lou Albano, and lots of other seasoned voice actors. One character that was never voiced by anyone was Mad Maxine, a new female wrestler who would have been the nemesis to Wendy Richter. She can be seen in early promotional art for the animated series and WWF merchandise at the time, but never appeared in the cartoon itself. According to the actual Mad Maxine, she never even knew that her character was intended to be in the animated series. Her experience in the WWF was terrible, and she would leave within 2 years due to pay disputes with her manager and trainer, the Fabulous Moolah. Not coincidentally, the part on the show was taken by her manager and trainer, the Fabulous Moolah. It's a case of the seedy behind-the-scenes world of professional wrestling having actual repercussions on the production of the animated series, where egos, power, and money will drive people to do anything to remain in the spotlight. It's more than an illegal hold, it's the intent to control and ruin someone else's life and career, but we're not going to get into that right now. If you were an avid fan of WWF with humans and cartoon characters, the divergence of the plots and the characterizations might have been confusing. During the short run of the animated series from 1985 to 1986, Rowdy Roddy Piper was both a bad guy and a good guy in real life, but remained a bad guy on the cartoon. Wendy Richter and Jimmy Superfly Snuka were both featured characters on the cartoon through 1986, even though they both left the WWF in 1985. While there were all kinds of licensed WWF toys on the shelves during the run of Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, most of them were not directly associated with the cartoon. All money flowed back to the WWF licensing, yes, but the figures weren't based on the show's character models. The best Rockin' Wrestling could do was a series of 4-inch rubbery, non-posable erasers from a company called Winston Toys. They were similar to the Bendies released by LJN, but not bendy, and probably terrible erasers. LJN, on the other hand, was maximizing the WWF license, a sling-em-fling-em wrestling ring for the 8-inch figures to battle it out that, a few years later, would be recalled because the hard plastic posts caused a few injuries after kids fell on them. But that's the kind of urban legend stuff that makes a toy even more desirable. Outside of toys, the Rockin' Wrestling name found its way onto bed sheets, card games, and sticker books. It was on kites, coloring books, puzzles, and lunchboxes. Every offshoot, every association with WWF was a viable product on the shelves, just as much as Star Wars or any comic book superheroes. Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling episodes have been released sporadically on VHS. Hard to tell if any of the DVD releases are legit, but it sure doesn't look like it. You can still find some episodes on places like YouTube, but it is not currently officially streaming anywhere. In April of 2015, the series made its debut on the WWE Network. That lasted just a few months because in July of 2015, WWE pulled all references to Hulk Hogan after a recording of him using racist language was leaked. And that's a whole thing that we're not going to get into here. Since then, Hulk Hogan has been reinstated to the WWE, so there is a chance that the series could get an official release at some point. As for the other stars of Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, well, it's been a long time, and wrestling is a brutal profession. Nikolai Volkov, Roddy Piper, the Fabulous Moolah, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Junkyard Dog, Captain Lou Albano, Andre the Giant, Mr. Fuji, Big John Studd, and Mean Gene Okerlund are all deceased. That leaves just Hulk Hogan, Wendy Richter, Hillbilly Jim, Tito Santana, and the Iron Sheik as the only living live characters still living alive. Of course, their cartoon counterparts, both real and animated, could potentially live forever. Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling is a cartoon inspired by cartoonish source material, an attempt to make something already outlandish even more ridiculous, but failing to go as far as the source itself would go. It is a rare case where the world of the animated series is less compelling because it must be more consistent and more believable than reality. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. If you haven't heard, we have started a new second channel called Toy Galaxy 2. That's TOO. Head over there and subscribe for stuff we don't post here. If you're in the position to help the channel grow or speed up the teleprompter, either way, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy or become a YouTube channel member. Please share this video and let us know in the comments down below. Are you more of a junkyard dog? Or more of a junkyard dog's dog?
It was worth the wait.
Was it? Is it ever?